You didn't get fired for no reason. And before you get mad at me, I'm not saying your boss was right about everything. I don't know your boss. Maybe the guy was genuinely unbearable. Maybe the company completely sucked. I've worked jobs where management somehow managed to turn a simple 8-hour shift into the most miserable experience possible. So trust me, I understand it. But you're not working there anymore, so sitting around figuring out whether your manager was a good person doesn't really do anything for you now. What matters is why you got fired. And I think you probably know more about that than you're willing to admit. Because usually when somebody tells you they got fired out of nowhere, you talk to them for another 5 minutes and you start hearing about all the stuff that happened before the firing. There's a warning 2 weeks ago. They had already talked to them about being late. They had already gotten into it with the manager 3 different times. They basically stopped trying because they hated being there. And eventually the company got rid of them. That isn't really out of nowhere. You just didn't think that they were actually going to do it. And if that's what happened to you, then just say that. You pushed it too far. And that happens. You get comfortable. You thought that you had more room than you actually did. That doesn't mean you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you're unemployable. It means you misjudged the situation. But if you can't even admit that much, you're probably going to do the same thing at the next place. And that's why this video is here to tell you this. Not because I want you sitting around feeling guilty about some random job you didn't even like. I want you to be able to look back without lying to yourself. Think about the last month you worked there. Were you actually doing a good job? Not the first month when you were new and you made a very good impression. I'm talking about right before they fired you. Were you still showing that same level of effort that you were since the first day that you got in there? Did people trust you to get things done? Or had you gotten to a point where you only move when somebody was standing over you? When your manager talked to you about something, do you actually fix it? You don't need to tell me the answer. I'm not the one that knows about your problem. You just need to be able to answer it without immediately adding, yeah, but. My brother-in-law used to tell me all the time that anything before the word but is absolute bullshit. Because yeah, after that but, that's where the accountability just dies. Yeah, I was late, but everybody's late. Okay. Yeah, I was on my phone, but there wasn't anything to do. Okay. None of that changes what happened. And I think people get stuck there because they're treating as if admitting if they were wrong is letting the other person win. You're not. Your old manager isn't sitting at home waiting for you to admit he was right. He probably forgot about the conversation, and now he's looking for somebody new to replace you. This is for you. If you screwed something up, just own it. There's actually something freeing about being able to say, yeah, I handled that badly. You don't have to keep defending it anymore. You don't have to keep telling the same story where everybody around you was an idiot and somehow you were the only sane person in the building. And I know losing your job makes that harder because right after it happens, you're angry. Of course you are. You just spent months of your life going into that place. You knew everybody there. You had a schedule. You had a paycheck coming in. Then one conversation happens and suddenly you're walking back to your car knowing you don't work there anymore. And it's embarrassing, especially if you know you could have prevented it, because that's another part that really bothers you. And now you're replaying the last conversation, thinking about what you should have said or what you should have done differently. Don't stay there long, seriously. You've already been fired. There's no prize for spending the next 2 weeks making yourself feel worse about it. Take the lesson and keep moving forward. Like that movie. If they fired you because you were late constantly, then congratulations, your life lesson is extremely easy. You don't need a complete personality transformation. You just need to stop making the exact same mistake. Everybody screws up at work. I've never met a person who was perfect at every job they've been at. Just the other day, my friend was telling me about how he was 3 hours late from work. And this guy is the guy who I look up to as the guy who's always working. I've never met a person who's been perfect at every job they've had. You forget something, you show up late, you get annoyed and say something you probably shouldn't have, whatever. The problem starts when people keep giving you the exact same feedback and you start treating the feedback like it's some background noise. If 3 different people told you that you're hard to work with, there might be something there. Maybe it doesn't mean that they're completely right, but I'd at least think about it. If every manager you've ever had somehow ends up having an issue with the exact same attitude, I'd probably stop assuming that you just have the worst luck in human history. At a certain point, you have to ask yourself what you're bringing into these situations. It's uncomfortable. It's much easier to say that these people just don't understand me. Again, changing doesn't mean becoming some corporate robot who walks into work yelling, "Good morning, team," at 6 a.m. in the morning. Please do not become that guy either. It means fixing the parts of yourself that keep making your life harder. If you know you have a problem with being late, stop treating time like it's a suggestion. If you know you get defensive every time somebody corrects you, practice shutting up for 10 seconds and actually listening before responding. That sounds tiny, but think about how many arguments would disappear if people just did that. Somebody tells you, "Hey, you forgot to do this yesterday." Instead of immediately explaining the entire history of why technically it wasn't your fault, just go, "Yeah, my bad, I'll handle it." Done. Conversation over. You didn't die. Your ego survived. And now the other person knows you're capable of being corrected without turning it into a federal court case. A lot of these jobs aren't looking for unbelievable superstar employees. They just want somebody who shows up and does exactly what they're saying they're going to do. The bar is honestly lower than a bunch of people think. You know when you're pushing it. There's usually a moment where you catch yourself doing something and think, I should probably stop doing this. Listen to that feeling, because eventually somebody else notices too. And once your reputation at a job completely changes, it's really hard to get that back. If people see you as reliable, they give you a little room when you screw up. They know that's not normally you. But once a person starts expecting you to screw up, now every little thing confirms what they already think. You come in late and suddenly, of course he's late. You forget something and it's, of course he forgot something. That's a bad place to be at. And if you're ever there at your last job, think about when it started. There's probably a point where you stopped caring. Again, that happens too. Sometimes the real mistake wasn't that you were just lazy. You were just done with that place months before you actually left it. You stopped putting in the effort into anything because you didn't see a future there. You'd look at the clock every 15 minutes wondering how the hell only 4 minutes had passed. I've been there. But if you ever reach that point again, don't just sit there until somebody fires you. Start planning your exit. Look for another job while you still have the current one. That alone puts you in a completely different position. Walking away because you found something better feels a hell of a lot different from waking up one morning and realize you suddenly have no income. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you guys have any suggestions of different videos you guys would like me to make, please leave that down below. If you guys would like to share any of your fired stories down below, maybe I'll make a YouTube video about them, gathering them all up, and we'll console each other just off of being fired at any place that you've ever been fired at. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.